everything's going to ChatGPT, right? Maybe even our soul.
I think in the long run, though, people going back to trades, they'll actually probably be happier and healthier than the computer for livelihood lifestyle. I mean, that's how I make a living. And maybe the reason why it's not too soul crushing is because it's mostly in the form of conversations with people. But even me, like on a heavy work day, it's hard for me to like put in more than 4 hours at the screen, you know, and sometimes you got to. I'm not complaining. It's like the best job I could ever have. But, spending all day researching, putting together a PowerPoint, and then being in 4+ hours of content as well late into the night. That was my day yesterday. It was an awesome day. Don't get me wrong, but you do got to ground that out and get some sun, because creating stuff digitally, it has a lot of cool perks and advantages. Like no matter how much you create, it still all fits like in this thing, tiny, but the value of taking an idea from up in the ethers and bringing it into and putting it into a physical body as a craft of some kind, that has a ton of value because the energy that is your attention, your spiritual currency, your attention and intention that you put into that, and the kinetic energy of whatever it is you're working on, all of that is retained in the vessel of what it is that you put it into, the body that you built for the idea, as Walter Russell would say. So the trade's coming back. I think that's good for everybody. It's sad. Like when I look at myself, how few things that I know how to fix around my house. And you got to call your dad for stuff. And the dads are sometimes busy, or they won't be here forever. We need to translate that information to the future. I think of the whole, there's so much about like electricity, the wiring in a house, things like that, the more of our knowledge is outsourced to other people or to technology, the more risky some of the things that we're doing become. You know what I mean? Like, we following best practices here? Are we going to just start getting electrocuted by poorly done installations? You got to wonder.
We got to go back to the old ways in some ways, and we got to embrace the new way in other ways too. And I think the culture right now is just trying to figure out what that is. What ways of the old world should we bring into the new, and what ways are we currently doing now which we need to dispose of? That's what we're all trying to figure out. I don't know if you're on Twitter at all, or X, or whatever these things are called anymore, but man, one step into those interfaces, it's just pure. It's like my way versus your way versus my way, left versus right. And we're stepping into a time where these barriers and walls, they're getting more and more solidified for some people, but for some people as well, they're disintegrating. We're just seeing the truth of it all. We're kind of witnessing the split in real time between ourselves and the collective world. It's a pretty strange time to live in.
Yeah, may you live in strange times, the old Chinese curse. Or interesting times, I think it was. I don't go into the trenches of Twitter, and something inside of me just refuses to call it X. Like, that's a letter. That's not a name of a company. Sorry. But the mainstream social media platforms obviously designed for breeding and accelerating conflict. That seems to be the obvious goal. And it makes sense because it's like, that's like how a battery works. You got to have these polarities playing off of each other. And that's essentially what the mainstream socials are. They are resource extraction platforms, mostly attention extraction, and then commodifying that attention in the form of advertisements and data that can be, sell ads and sell data. That's what it's all about. I mean, they don't even conceal that that's the business model behind it. So why feed it? You know, I don't. I really like Telegram. I'll use Instagram as well just to promote my stuff, and I kind of have ambitions to have somebody else run a TikTok for me and put clips of my show on there. I don't really want to like actually use TikTok, but Telegram is it's like the old internet where it's just literally based on communicating. It reminds me of AOL Instant Messenger back in those days. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
when the internet was pure and innocent and we were in junior high, good times.
The good old days, really before the world started to turn to something else. When did you notice that the world was changing to something different?
Oh, it's always changing into something different, ain't it?
Well, there was a
Yeah.
tangible switch, wasn't there? It just sort of felt like it. Like 2013, something like that. Something
I
happened.
remember December in 2012 when the Mayan
Yeah.
prophecy
Yeah.
was said to the old world would end or the world would end. And sometime around, I think it was like the big day, like the big special day or roundabouts. I had just had a profound mushroom trip. I was in my early 20s, and then I smoked a joint with my dad, and it was the first time I felt like I was a man at that point. He saw me as grown up because he came down from his lofty authority position and accepted my right to decide to do something like that for myself and join me with it instead of, me being in trouble like I assume I would have been at any time before that. And of course, now that's not even a big deal. It's legal everywhere, including where I live. But for me at that time, that was the world changed. That's when I became a man. Smoked a joint with my dad. But yeah, like in terms of the question, it's always changing. There's this immaculate sky clock spiral that goes on where no matter how cyclical time is, there's always something slightly new and novel about the overall frequency field that we're in and the position of all the different variables. Slight tweak. It's like there's enough variables in the system that it never quite fully repeats, at least not, in a way that we could ever calculate the frequency of the repeat. There's this concept in esoteric schools of the year of our Lord. And a lot of the names of the god throughout the various systems of the mythology actually encode the idea of the word of the year in it. Like an example would be Janus. It's got Annis in it, which is the Latin word for year, or like Anna Maria. It's I think the mother of Mary was Anna. That's the name for the year, annual, right? And so there's this idea of the year of our Lord, the Catholics might say, and they call it like the acceptable year of our Lord, as if it has something to do with the calendar and making sure Easter is on the right time and we get Jesus' birthday on the right day. But I kind of think that when I pay enough attention and I track things properly, which I definitely don't always do, but I do notice patterns, especially as I've gotten a bit older and had some more experience where the same type of thing happens around the same day in a cyclical fashion. Like the first time I really noticed it is kind of morbid, but my ex had three years in a row where somebody very, very close to her, like in her family or a close personal friend, died on the same day in October 3 years in a row. And that was when I started, really looking around like, is this thing just a big circle that just repeats itself endlessly? And I think there might be some truth to that. And the year of our Lord concept, looking at the idea of astrology, something I talk about occasionally is how the mythos or astrotheology is that the father, the top G, the big god, the pater, which is the same word as pattern, is the entire sky. So another truth is that many of the sky fathers, sky gods, their name actually is a synonym for the word for sky. Like the father of Saturn is Oranos, which is the Greek word for sky. It's where we get the name of the planet Uranus, Oranos. So I think that the sky is like the all in a way. It's the outer boundary of our perception, but it's also what we can see the most of all at once. So if you are looking up just at the sky, you can basically see the entire thing. Your field of vision can be only the sky. You know what I mean? And you can't actually see everything that's in the heavens at once. Of course, some of it goes into the underworld and some of it goes in, the underworld as in it goes below the horizon at different points. But that's kind of like, it's kind of like the conscious and the unconscious. Whatever is currently visible in the sky is what's happening in human consciousness in that moment. And so the year of our Lord, to get back to that concept, it's like as the sky clock is turning and the story or the psychodrama of God's imagination as it is allegorized in all the constellations and stars and planets that have names and attributes related to mythological tales, that if we were to fully comprehend the mystery of the allegories in the heavens and pay enough attention in our life to see how our own life is an exact one-to-one match of the allegory of what goes on in the heavens throughout the course of the year, we might be able to gain enough awareness of the pattern that is God's psyche as it is revealed to us in the sky, the outermost limit, the highest, most total point of our perception, that we could we could conceive that by knowing the pattern that's going on in the sky and how it and what it means based on what happens down here as a reflection of it, that constitutes knowing the mind of God in its entirety. So the year of our Lord is like understanding the cyclical nature of God's expression into the creation. This is a very abstract concept. I might not be doing it the justice of how it all fits together in my head, but you kind of see where I'm going with this, that like if we can get the whole, this happens on this day, this happens within this constellation, that we are really, it's the psychodrama of the creation. It's the intent and will of that which set it all in motion.
There's only a way we can hack the matrix and give it a pattern and give everyone a little calendar update. Here's what's going to happen today. Here's how the matrix wants to attack. Or maybe it wants to make something beautiful. What is the matrix? What is reality?
Well, matrix means womb. So the only way that I could ever accept that I'm in a matrix is if I'm in a womb right now, being incubated to be born into my next life at the point that this dream ends upon the death of this particular character. In which case, I can get behind the idea that I'm in a matrix as a womb. I don't think I'm in a computer simulation. I don't think that it's attacking me, but I do think that the notion of God or the three-part being requires us to understand that whatever creates this place, whatever the deepest, most primary consciousness that exists, the root or the trunk of the tree that we are leaves and branches upon, it's responsible for all that we experience as good and all that we experience as evil. So, it's coming from the same place, and and the evil you have to consider, or I consider, as something that's just there to strengthen us, so that just like a tomato plant won't grow right if it doesn't have some wind on it to test it. We need the trials too. So, I don't think though that we're in a matrix. I don't think that this place is designed to our detriment. Those kind of perspectives are very prevalent, especially in under the label of Gnosticism. And, that just gets conflated with simulation theory or inside a computer program, all that. it's fine if people believe that, but I see it as, if I were to take that on as a belief, I would feel disempowered by it. And ultimately, I'd feel victimized by that. And at the end of the day, we get to decide who we want to be. And so I just can't vibe with a limited, a limiting belief like I'm at the mercy of some lines of code or an evil demiurge that is imprisoning me or whatever version of it that people might take on.
S- Just curious, uh, what about that would make you feel like victimized or disempowering?
Well, the way it's sold, the way it's sold is like your spark of the divine and you're encased in the prison of matter of your body. The reality is created by the lesser god. And so all of nature is actually the expression of the insane, you know, abortion of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. This is how it's sold in the like truther circles or,
Yeah.
Aeon Byte, Gnosticism. And that to me, I don't see how that is anything but victimization as a perspective that, okay, so what I am at my core is a fragment of the true God, but somehow that God who is the omnipotent and absolute is tricked by a lesser and deformed sub god, and that trick was so well done that that the real God can't even save itself from the trick of this matrix as it's portrayed, you know, and that the whole thing is just a factory to inst- instigate negative emotions that then some invisible beings are going to feed on. They call it the loosh farm, or
Whoosh, yeah.
the archons are feeding on it. Um, so what about that is anything but being a victim? Because there's nothing you can do about it. You're accepting a very reduced potential, and you're limiting even the idea of the supreme or the absolute being. To me, that's the ultimate like checkmate. That's so simple but rarely asked. Is like, so if the demiurge did all this and it's like an evil thing, why doesn't the real God just fix it? Wouldn't the real God be able to do that, since the real God can do anything, presumably, being that it's the ultimate supreme being with all creative omnipotence and omniscience? So, the whole thing falls apart right there. It doesn't, the philosophy is broken. And people ignore that though, and they still just want to keep the perspective of like, they're doing it to me. The reason my life isn't the way that I want it is because I never had a chance. Because this place is evil inherently. And yeah, that doesn't work for me. So I speak against that as much as I get the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. I don't think that's what's happening. I don't think there's some sort of evil controlling this. If what people would, I guess, if they do think it's some sort of matrix simulation and whatever negative aliens are looshing our energy to keep
So like,
to
okay,
keep
so
us.
just to be clear though, negative negative intention exists, evil behavior exists, energy harvesting exists. But I'm just saying that that's not the point of this place, and it's not the ultimate truth of this place. That's all I'm saying. I mean, anything's possible on the infinite spectrum of like behavior and identities people can take on. So uh there there's definitely, like we just talked about it with Twitter. Twitter is literally like a loosh factory. It absolutely is. And
Oh
you'll
yeah,
notice too that people build the reality that they believe in. So
yeah,
when it comes to the dark occultists that run most of the globalist system, if you will, they actually are typically the ones that are, going to secret society meetings of some kind, or whatever type of initiations that we're not privy to. The ones that are extensions of the priesthood that uh has done a lot of manipulating of humanity and treating humanity like cattle for many generations. they tend to look at reality the way that I just described. Like, the whole what I now call pop culture Gnosticism. And
Yeah.
so they build systems that reflect their everybody does this. We build things that reflect our deepest held beliefs about reality. So when you look at Twitter, for example, it is exactly that. It's like it is a big loosh factory. But it's not the ultimate truth of existence. There's a reality that it's a simulation within. So, I mean, there can be we can build practically anything we want. Humans are omnificent, a word that means possessing all creative power, because we're the image of the creator. And so we share in that omnificent capability, which means, in subsystems, anything goes, anything could be built, including a type of weird, Gnostic worldview where they make ChatGPT the demiurge. And you know what I mean? Like they're actually doing that. It's a thing, but it's not the highest truth. It's not the ultimate reality. Has anyone actually asked ChatGPT if it's the demiurge? I'd like to know.
I don't know.
Currently, it's just all algorithms,
Yeah.
just like you said, predetermined responses that input information, turn it into components, swap things around, and try to sound intelligent, like 90% of most human beings. This world's crazy, and it will get more and more crazy. And I think these meta religions will continue to prop up. Some of them will be helpful, and some of them will just be spewing a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. I mean, I really I got in trouble in a way, like last year, probably around this time even, for speaking about this very topic. So I was kind of in with the cool kids that talk about Gnosticism and, you know, they're out to get us, the invisible Draco reptilians. They're behind the screen watching you right now, waiting for you to slowly evolve and catch you at the right moment. And I was speaking out against that kind of stuff, primarily
It's their
among,
fault that you can't stop watching porn and they're
yeah,
just
whatever.
eating your energy, every time you bleh. Yeah, it's an excuse for being out of control yourself, like most of the people that hold this belief. Sorry, I want you to continue your story though.
Oh, that was basically it. I was trying to say that, you know, point out how it doesn't really make sense. And wouldn't you be beyond that? Or what does it mean to think that you're inferior to that? It's not really an empowering message. And, I just got attacked for it, predominantly by females, because they're very interested in the whole narrative of how there's always something out to get you, predominantly in the new age community. And it's just a crazy, crazy world, that whole thing. I can't imagine being in that trap. But
Well, women are more geared to a perspective like that, especially uh because the female has this biological imperative of being protected by a male, which in a way is like a deference of authority to an external. And so, one thing I've noticed with people who have this type of worldview that we're talking about is they always externalize their authority to something. And there's a psychological truth of like if you are a slave to somebody, then you want to be a master to somebody else. Like every master of slaves is a slave to something above it. And the only way to get out of that sort of hierarchical death loop is to be in jurisdiction only under the highest power, which is your higher self or the source or God or however you might consider that. But yeah, it's a feminine in a yin and yang sense, it's a feminine perspective to be enslaved by something outside of yourself. And it's there's nothing like in nature wrong with these hierarchies in the sense that like, you know, the man protects his woman and his children. The woman protects and has authority over the children, and the man is under the authority of God That's like a very natural hierarchy that can exist in a family unit. But a lot of that is broken down. And so, a lot of men are actually afraid to take any kind of position of authority in their relationships with women, or women are not, uh, have been kind of conditioned away from any kind of in, intimacy with just one person that is close enough where that type of thing could just naturally arise. And yeah, we've been told like, oh, you're a sexist if you talk like I'm talking. But the truth is deep down, the women actually want to be able to defer to a protector that can tell them, no, that's not good for you. I have your best interests in mind. And that doesn't, obviously that doesn't mean it would be good for a man to abuse or be tyrannical to a woman. That wouldn't be good. Of course. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there should be like, I could, it's only like it's only the very like weak man that tries to control everything that their woman does. It's not about that at all. It's about in the time where it matters, you have the fortitude to put your foot down and be like, that's not happening. Even if I have to tell you no, that's not going to happen because I know that wouldn't be good for you. And then that's what that if that was brought back into people's relationships, the relationships there would be a lot more spark there because the natural hierarchy would be established and restored again. And there's probably a lot more we could say about that would to flesh out the idea. And I know there's also people that just cringe at the very thought of any kind of like male female dynamics that aren't uh, reversed so that the man is the one actually submitting to the woman. But that's how I see it, and my own experience in life has proven it very, very completely.
Yeah, we're in this time where everything is confusing and we're being brought back to what is the way things should be. And again, some of us, it's very clear, and for others, it's not. So, what do you think about waking up the sheeple? Is that a concept that is interesting, something we should be dedicating our time to, or should we just be finding people that are already on the wavelength frequency and just kind of get it already?
It's a mystery. What's the grace of what's the grace of God that gives somebody the moment of the wake up anyway? It's nebulous and it's different. It's subjective from person to person. Ultimately, I don't think that there's any fruit in putting like in your mind holding the belief or the conviction that it's my job to wake up the sheeple. It's the type of thing where when you really start to get into the fundamentals of how belief shapes your external reality, your beliefs and expectations about yourself and about life could absolutely influence and condition what you experience in life, then you're starting from a broken. Think of it like in the programmer sense, if you have a broken chain of logic in your program, then you're not going to get the result you want. So the logic of these people are asleep and I have to wake them up is exactly the type of code that would come back null and void, because in the code itself, you're making an assertion that they are asleep. So there's, like, that's the very condition that you don't want them to be in. So I think the better perspective is to know that even the most sheeple person out there, look at them like, okay, I know some stuff about life that they don't know, or I accept some things as true that they don't accept as true, but they know some stuff about life I don't know, and they've got some truths that I don't know. So maybe it's more of an exchange than me waking them up. Maybe there's stuff that they could wake me up to. But even beyond all that, the thing that has the best positive influence on the world is even beyond like trying to seek out others that think the same way as you. It's actually, I think, more effective to just do what is the most full body, 100% hell yes to you that resonates as fun and interesting. What could you do? What could you do all day and not feel tired at the end? Actually feel energized after it, even though you put in all kinds of attention and effort and energy into it. And that type of stuff, the people that you meet through pursuing what's actually interesting and fun to you are the people that you're going to actually want to spend time with and be around, especially when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex. You want to meet them, do you want to meet the mother of your future children at the bar, like a bar floozy, or do you want to meet them because they just happened to be interested in what it was that you were doing, that you were interested in, and you converged in that place? You know what I mean? So I think that you'll meet the people that you're meant to, that are best for you if you do what's best for you. Even if that's something that requires you to be a bit solitary for a while, so be it. They will show up. And what does the most influence on friends, family that you want to maybe change you would like to see them change their minds about things that would make them healthier and happier, is to make sure that you're doing those changes yourself. Because a lot of like, how many of us have been like, talking to a friend and they're smoking a cigarette, they got a beer in their hand, and they're like 40 pounds overweight, and they're like, the government's poisoning the water. They're poisoning the air with the chemtrails. You're like, all right, dude. And he might be right about that stuff, but if you want the others to change, then do as many of the changes that you can do. And when others see you having a really great life, really healthy, all kinds of like energetic sparkliness coming off of you, vitality, charisma, all the things that come from being in a flow state as much as you can be, that's when they're going to come to you and ask you questions. And that's what I like about podcasting is I get to feel like I'm waking up people in a way, but I don't have to go out of my way to put what I'm doing in front of anybody. I just put it into this container, which is what you guys are doing. And then when people are ready or curious that know you, they can go find out themselves. It's especially helpful because when you get into the position of being maybe known for having some data on conspiracies or knowing a thing or two about a thing or two with religions or spirituality or whatever, like the things that I talk about on my show, instead of having to rehash the conversation with every person that comes to me, I could actually just point them to a video and be like, well, here's where I actually researched this and prepared a talk on it, and there's the whole thing, rather than me having to redo the conversation in this one-on-one without any preparation and maybe not getting the point across so well. So I guess what I mean is, yeah, just do what for you would mean you're crushing and what would make you the healthiest you can be, the happiest you could be. And then naturally people are going to, when they themselves are ready, the external world is the reflection of your inner world. So if your inner world is willing to change in a positive way and to do what's best for yourself, then your outer world is going to begin populating with people who are willing to change and willing to do better for themselves. And maybe some of the ones that are closest to you in your orbit, like I'm thinking like parents, siblings, old friends, they might be the slowest to change. But when you think about it, your relationship to those people goes the farthest back and has its origin points in the same place as your deepest conditioning is at. So, to me, it makes perfect sense that those people close to you might be the ones that are the slowest and hardest to change and require the most consistency on your end of getting better to move the needle for them. So don't get, hopeless about wanting to see mom or dad or brother or sister or old high school friends kind of start to get it or get healthier or get better psychologically. Just look at it like they are your heads up display in your life of how well you're doing getting yourself better. And, maybe in some ways, if you've been dishonest with yourself about your progress, overly inflated your ego about how good of a job you think you're doing or how special you are, they're going to reflect back to you in continuing to be in a maybe difficult or sick or seemingly broken state. But if you see them starting to get better, starting to make positive, healthy changes, you must be doing something right. So I think that that's what they're there for. They're like your personal, planets in astrology sense. They're like your gauge of your own inner world, the people you've known the longest that you're closest to.
It reminds me of a kind of a dream I had where people actually were planets. They had bases on these balls, and these balls had these wires connected to me, and they were dragging me through this tunnel Stargate system. And I remember just being pulled along like, whoa, looking up, and I seen this guy that I knew my whole life just sitting there with his face like almost shaped like a moon, just looking at me and almost like, you're going to be all right. And they pulled me to this like Stargate display room with the configurator and started plugging all the stuff, beam, 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 fixing my brain. And it was like the craziest, most HD, hyper real moment I've ever had in my life. And I woke up. And it made me think about those people in a much different way, similar to the context you just brought about. Like people really are reflections of you, and the state of how you interact with them also changes how they're going to interact with you, but also interact with themselves. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
when you think about it, when you meet somebody, it has a lot to do, like it has a lot of similarity to who you are at the time when you met them. You know what I mean? So, uh, that I think that can be also why, like, sometimes a new relationship, for example, romantically, can seem all perfect. Everything's great. Everything's 100% excellent because you're meeting each other at your current, most, fully evolved state, best self. But as that relationship deepens and they start coming more and more into your inner world, maybe meeting some of your cast of characters, like, you introduce them to your family, the friction might start to build up based on what's unhealed within you and that unhealed state coming out in them. But the, conscious relationships, you can work through that and it actually becomes a mirror that helps you find where the unhealed stuff is or the less than optimal psychological configurations are at. But that dream, that sounds awesome. Isn't it amazing how, you said HD, but like sometimes in those states, those visionary moments, it's like the frame rate is really low in our meat suit experience of reality. And so, like those visionary or dream states that you're talking about, sometimes the frame rate is so smooth. It's like, this is like a million frames per second right here. You know what I mean? It's like freaky. It's like seeing one of those TVs at like Sam's Club or a big department store, one of the most brand new super HD, ultra HD 4K, like, 300 FPS TVs. And you're like, how is this more realistic than real life? And I think it speaks to the fact that the body is kind of like a sort of hardware that uh our sensory experience, there's a sensory capacity to who and what we are that is psychic, that is the psychic sensory level is primary or before foundational to the physical sensory experience. So whenever you strip the physical part away because you're just purely in the mental psychic realm, then things actually are clearer in all senses, including like symbolically. Like for you in that dream, the symbolism of who the people in your life really were in relation to you was much more clear than it might come across symbolically in your day-to-day mundane life.
reality in a way is a place designed for you to grow. It's a place that it's very, like, it just makes sense that that's the entire point that we're here, is to grow. It's almost like no other thing to do. And however variation we all decide to lay out our curriculum is dependent upon us. It's like the Gnosticism thing. If you need a punishing sky daddy to kick you in the ass to get you to do the right thing, then maybe you need that. But that representation is a phase that we all go through in the slides of our life. They're not fixed things. They're not complete, total, absolute truth. It's like in programming as well. The difference between absolute and relative. Absolute must mean that the thing itself is positioned absolutely in accordance to all possible things. It's like the total scaled in vector point. But relative is something that you can apply to an object that can be related to other things. It changes based upon perception or its container. And I guess we're all trying to figure out what's absolute truth, what's relative truth. Where am I? What do I do? And I think we're figuring it out. We're definitely figuring out here at Reality Designers. We're trying to just make interesting things for people to latch onto, get a little slice of a code, and move on. That's all we really can do is contribute our little commit to the worldwide database of consciousness.
The shared learning experience. I think that's the new model is I think the old model of being a specialist in just one thing and then teaching that thing endlessly in the same way for your entire career, I think that's out. I don't think that's going to work anymore. I really like the new model that people like us are engaged in, which is we teach what we're currently learning as we're learning it. And then we move on, update, evolve, continue, but we don't get stuck in one thing. There is, that question of absolute truth and relative truth is a sticky question, but I think it helps us to accept that there is absolute truth. And then, maybe it's beyond our ability to fully comprehend, but what makes truth the capital T truth versus the sort of new age, my truth? I believe that anything that is absolute truth is self-evident, which means it doesn't really need explaining. It might need pointing out because we can miss things that are right under our nose. But it does have there's a self-evident nature, which to me is perfect because what is the absolute? The absolute truth, the biggest possible truth is all that exists. If it exists, it's true, right? So, well, where did existence come from? Or where did God come from? We give God the attribute of self-existing, self-generated or self-existing. Well, if God is truth and God is self-existing, then truth must be self-evident, as in it exists in and of itself without it needing to be sort of fabricated or explained or built up. It's there to see. So to me, those are the really fun moments, like in streams that I do with friends where we're getting into synchro, mystic, super gravy portals, where all of a sudden something jumps out at us that's been there the whole time, self-evident, but we never noticed it before. Those are the biggest, most fun aha epiphany moments where you catch what's been right under your nose the whole time.
There's always something new to find from old information. You always got to look at your code and be like, oh, 2 months ago I did it that way. That's dumb. You look at it like I could change it now with my newfound knowledge. And then that turns out to be the most optimized pattern for the time. A year that goes by, you check back your code. Oh, that was dumb. I should do it this way now. And we're always adjusting what we view, adapting to our current knowledge levels.
Yeah, last night I got to do I guess you'd call it a seminar or a teaching thing it was like a members only deal. So people had paid to get into this Zoom call, and I was invited to come teach for this group. And it had been a long time, maybe a year or more, since I did a presentation on the biofield anatomy, which like the structure of our energy field and what means what and where it's at. And I had a really good time reviewing that information because the last few times that I had done a presentation of that sort on the biofield and the anatomy of your aura, most of my information was coming from what I learned from other people in my training and research about it. I wouldn't, training is a strong word because I'm self-taught, but this time I was able to like go back into an old PowerPoint presentation, sort of rebuild it from the ground up, simplify, remove stuff that was kind of like filler back then and add a bunch of insights that I gained from real world experience, putting it to the test. And most exciting to me was redescribing all of the different parts of the biofield, like root chakra, solar plexus, crown, the different meanings in the left, right, front, back, up, down of the energy field. And being able to add in the stuff that I never could have learned in a book because it wasn't in the book, but I've read it in the book of people's life story of how people express in their body and in their energy field. So I was able to add a lot of really great stuff to that because, in the review process, like, an example I'll give. So you guys are hip to the biofield anatomy. It's like your 6 feet of bubble space has got specific information in it in terms of stuck energy that could express through limiting beliefs, expectations, or stuck emotional energy. So one of those, like as an example, in the biofield anatomy book, right? Tuning the Human Biofield by Eileen McCusick, which is what I read to kick me off into practicing the method and testing it on people. What it says about the heart chakra is that the front right side of the heart chakra can hold stuck energy around difficulty with saying no and setting boundaries. But I've learned since then that what I was previously looking for was just for problems with saying no. And that's all I would find. But then one day it occurred to me through what person I was working with that, oh, wait, what this person has stuck here is actually they've repressed the expression of something that they wanted, like they repressed an affirmative. They didn't tell someone how they really felt about them. They didn't express some kind of love or some kind of desire. So then I realized, okay, this actually, it's not just about not being able to say no. It's just any kind of repression of expressing what your heart wants in any way could get stuck in this part of the heart chakra. All right, that makes sense. Or the left side of the root chakra was described to me when I read the book as if there's stuck energy there, it expresses it as the person is lazy or won't take action in the world. But what I found in the reviewing of the code of the human energy field is that it's actually different from person to person. The end result will be the same, that the stuck energy on the left hip will stop them from taking action in the world, but the reasons for it can vary dramatically. Like it could be it could be that they believe they're lazy, or it could be that they've taken on the belief that they're shy, or it could be that they are deathly afraid of being exposed in some way or being seen by others. And all of those are ways that they might not take certain actions in the world. So the end result is the same, but the reasons for it change. So those are some examples of what I'm talking about of how, reviewing your code regularly is important because, you don't want to get stuck only realizing that all these things that are language based, whether it's computer code or something like the biofield anatomy, or literally the language that you speak to others with, real language is a living thing. It should evolve over time. It does interpersonally between people, how they communicate with each other. So don't get your system stagnated by thinking it can't be improved or bettered. All linguistic based systems can be streamlined, improved, expanded, etc.
The more data you get as you progress in life, that allows you to uncover new layers that you wouldn't have seen before. And you get that new data through learning, growing, expanding your consciousness. And I also find it interesting how you're saying like the human body is like hardware and we're almost like these biological electric magnetism holographic beings that exist in this reality. And it's interesting how we can do these things to our bodies that are, I don't want to say like hacks, but like you can use the tuning forks and like remove stuck energy, or you can like acupuncture, poke yourself in certain spots and releases certain tension or releases certain motions or twist your body in certain ways. And it's almost sort of like a video game with cheat codes. When I think about it like that, it kind of makes me think like it's not like a simulation, but not a simulation when like, these certain things kind of line up what we believe is going to create a reality. And all these things just kind of layer upon each other. I just find it very fascinating.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love to expand on that. So, simulation, to be precise with our language, simulation means hypocrisy, essentially. It's feigning to be that which you are not. So, that's why I think simulation theory is so popular with hardcore scientific materialists. And there's actually such a thing as spiritual materialism as well. And that's what you know, the pseudo Gnostic, that's not really based on true knowledge of self or reality, it's based on these preconceived notions, is actually a form of spiritual materialism. And, when I say that, it's why simulation theory is so popular, I think, with the materialist crowd, scientific or spiritual or otherwise, is because they they are simulating in the sense that they are pretending to be that which they're not. I mean, they're pretending that their mind or their consciousness is either trapped in or locked in their body or an expression or growth out of their body. Like, that's what the biofield anatomy and doing tunings with people has proven to me. Although I didn't need it proven to me, I think I'd already kind of subjectively proven it to myself. But over and over again, it proves to me that your mind isn't in your body is in your mind. All of it is in your mind. So, simulating that you are just a body or that you're a spirit that's trapped in a body, that's a form of hypocrisy in a sense. And when we say that life is like a video game, I like that metaphor. I don't think it's literally true in the sense of like you know, inside of a computer or something per se.
Yeah.
But the reason why computers work or technology works is that it has to mimic something in nature. You like look at a car. A car is like a body in a way. It's got a heart, it's got veins. Computers are like that. Even a city is like a type of organism in a way. It's got like energy comes in, waste goes out, it has circulation, all of that. So I actually more than life being a test or a school. I actually think it feels more accurate to say it's like a game, because you seek to get better at games. You seek to improve your standing in the game. You seek to improve your skill in the game. All of that is true. But when it's a game, that really takes some of the edge off of the whole situation. Like maybe it's not so serious after all. Maybe life is for our enjoyment and it's for, our growth in the sense that we get better at it. But I think that whatever we truly are, if we're not simulating that we're just our body, is the all knowing, all existing, self evident, eternal, energy that is the life force or the creative, impulse that we call God. Not saying that we are in our ego is God, but that which animates us is not separate from, you know, that which created everything that's animated. So in that sense, there's the biggest version of us, or like, I look at God as the tree of life, and what we experience here as people are the leaves or branches of that tree. But at our roots or our most original essence, there's nothing to gain. There's nothing to lose. How can you take away from something that is everything? How can you give something to something that is everything? So take some of the edge off and realize, like, don't worry about fucking up. What fucks you up the most is thinking you're fucking up. I'm not saying to be, to do evil in the world or do unto others, things that you wouldn't have done unto yourself. That clearly has backlash, and you're not gonna enjoy that. So, people are gonna do what they're gonna do. There is a type of morality built into this place in the sense of the reflectivity of the inner outer world experience. But I do think the game metaphor is better because, at the end of the day, when you finish playing a game, whether it's Scrabble or World of Warcraft or something, when you get up from that game, who you are outside of the game hasn't really shifted. Maybe experiences have changed or your mood has changed in a sense, but who you are, like if the physical body, unless you've like gained some weight, but even that's a temporary change. So who you are outside of the game is, I think, beyond, I don't think that we need to worry about like, did I mess up this life or did I learn my lessons? That kind of puts like this pressure on us. And when someone tells you got to do something, don't you kind of just not want to do that? We can grow and get better. Yes, that's part of the game itself. But yeah, I like reality as a game. To me, that's an empowering way to look at it. And, leveling up all the role-playing game tropes and elements, that is all great. There's something about the epiphany that is energetic. Like, there's certain levels of comprehension of the structure of reality that are only accessible when you have enough charge in your battery or your body. And then the other thing is there's certain elements of certain things about expansion in life that no one can teach you, no matter how hard you search. Like there's certain keys that just cannot be given. They have to be found within, right? Like when I first started InnerVerse, when I was like asking everybody, I was looking for the person who could tell me how to do it. Tell me how to break free of the job that I feel like a slave in, doing what I don't want, and tell me how to what's the way to live based on, get my income based on what I'm actually passionate about and feel aligned with in my soul. And nobody could tell me to do that, how to do that. Once I took the leap of faith necessary to myself for the to do that, when I found it in myself to have the belief factor, I guess, that I could survive that way and not be scared of the unknown element of not being sure, like when your next, money is going to come in or how much it's going to be or how that bill is going to get paid. Well, once I'd done that leap of faith, at that point, then people could actually, I could talk to my guest about that type of thing and actually get somewhere, actually share something useful. So there's certain elements of epiphany. First of all, you have to be energetically charged enough to approach them. And you might even, like, if you dip in energy, forget stuff that you thought was like super locked in. And when you next get your energy back into a healthy, coherent state, high level state, all of a sudden the epiphany will pop back in and you'll be like, how did I ever forget that? How did I ever forget that that's how life works? Or that's how I want to behave, or whatever the case may be. So, that being said, I'm happy. And I think my external world is able to receive that which I'm able to find within myself. And so I can, there's definitely some things I could communicate to your audience that in a cool programmed format. Maybe there's a way to gamify or systematize or through some cool GPU or a what do you call it? Graphic user interface GUI to teach about the anatomy of their aura. I think that could be really cool. So maybe we should be in touch about that after the cast or through email. But because I'm imagining just some sort of interface where you could click on different parts of a person's body or different colors in their auric field and get a little pop-up or graphic of the information that might be in that part of their energy field, or like a 3D model that you could spin around, and they would have like floating color points that could be clicked on, and you click on like the the front left of the solar plexus, and it's like it's got some, I don't know, I would even maybe put it in the form of like affirmations. The not self affirmation of the left side of the solar plexus is I can't, or any form of powerlessness of some kind. And then the true self expression of that part of the solar plexus is I can, that kind of thing. And we could maybe even, it could be more detailed than that, but it could be really cool to help people see. Maybe they just click on the 3D man on the screen, and they're like, okay, my left knee hurts. I click on the left knee, and it's like, ask yourself, where in life are you struggling to let go of something? That's what your left knee is hurting for. That would be that is definitely like a reality designer's level hack in a sense to understand the game, because the tricky part about the human life game is that you don't get a user manual when you get in here. And lots of people have tried to write the manual. And I think that's what the scriptures were maybe originally supposed to be. And it was more based on that whole like zodiacal year of our Lord, psychodrama of the creator. But like what about the body itself? A lot of the scriptures are there almost like a user manual for the world. So it's kind of external based. But what about your physical body, this vehicle? How does it talk to you? And that's what needs to be broken out of by all of us. The ways that we ignore the messages from our body because we forget or we pretend that it's just a meaningless occurrence. That gurgle in my stomach doesn't mean anything. It just happened. Or that sore spot or that scratch or whatever. None of it is meaningless. Everything has some kind of meaning. Everything is a message, and especially stuff going on with your body, because the body is the shadow of the spirit, or it's the, it's like the spirit made physical. If I could describe what I think the body is, I would look at it like your soul or your essence or your spirit, all these words that kind of get thrown around interchangeably. But your deepest, most original aspects, you could see that as a seed. Okay, and so think of a tree. Tree comes from a seed, right? It might be a infinitesimally tiny seed. And one day that goes into the ground, and you come back 50 years later and you have a 30-foot tree. It's humongous. Or 200 years later, and it's gigantic, it's enormous. But where's the seed? Where's the seed that it started out as? It's nowhere. It's not there. It's the whole tree. So I think that's like, I think that's what our body is. I think the seed is our true essence, or our spirit or our soul. But where does that go? It becomes the whole body. It's the whole thing, until the point where that body can no longer house that mental or that life force energy, in which case it returns to the form it was before. Sort of like in a tree's life cycle, it will put off some more seeds, something like that. That's kind of, maybe the metaphor falls apart at a certain point, but that's kind of how I see what the body is, which means it's very the body is very relevant to your spiritual experience, which is the opposite of what of a lot of the world is fallen, the world is broken or run by the devil. Your body is dirty, naughty, naughty, all of that type of religious mumbo jumbo. But like, no, your body is like your direct interface to your spirit. It's your, like, that's the question that most people get into quote unquote spirituality for, is like, what do I actually want? Who am I? And unfortunately, a lot of the religious traditions will be like, well, I'll tell you right now, you're not your body. Well, I feel like I'm my
Yeah.
body. I feel like the intelligence or the awareness of my consciousness is distributed throughout this entire thing. Consciousness means feeling. Well, I can feel in my fingertip. I can feel down in my toe, the back of my head. So, if I am my consciousness, if that's my I am, it's my deepest thing. Well, why does it extend through every single infinitesimal fiber and at part of this physical body? So that's what I think. I think your body is a microcosm of the entire reality. It's like it's a fractal. So in that sense, like, your body is the whole thing, man. And so treat it like you want it. Treat it like you love it. Treat it like it's good. That's one thing you asked about, is waking up the normies or the sheeple. And, that, I don't know about all that, but I do know that people do wake up. And when they wake up, they're like, where's the map?
Yeah.
Where's the map? How do I? And then, if they're anything like most of us, they wind up on a lot of detours. They trudge through the swamp of sorrows. Their trusty steed gets sucked into the muck and they lose it. And, it's very sad. And then they got to fight the Baba Yaga and all kinds of monsters come out. But maybe, if we, like your web here of ideas, if that kind of a concept, 3D idea web, could be applied to things that people might be wondering about, just in a topical list of what you would call conspiracy information, we might save people a lot of trouble. Like, here's the stuff that's pertinent to know about this topic, and here's the stuff to avoid because it's a detour to the swamp of sorrows. That's the map is still yet to be written. The manual for the human experience yet to be written. And I'm happy to be a part of any kind of project that nobly attempts to guide people away from the pitfalls that a lot of us may have fallen into when we were realizing that deferring our authority to the gangs of Earth is not working out.
Well, we're the best ones to write the map because we fell for all the tricks. And then we came out. We're like, whoa, half of that's totally irrelevant. You just don't need to do that. Or maybe you do, but I don't think you do. We'll see.
I think after Cooties, a lot of people got to jump into, I look at like human collective consciousness like a series of tunnels in a mine, the mines of the mind. And what made me start thinking this way is how I used to go to a lot of music festivals. And when I first started going to them, you might see a couple of girls with a hula hoop, and they were pretty good. I was like, wow, there was some good hula hooping. I didn't know you could do that. All my experience of hula hooping was like PE class in elementary school. No tricks at all, just barely keeping it going. And then a few years passed, and I look around, I'm like, wow, there's a lot more girls hula hooping, and they're very good at it. A few more years pass, and like the things the girls were doing with hula hoops would blow your mind. Like that, you wouldn't even have thought that was possible. And part of that was, obviously, there's new people starting to pick up the hula hoop, but the new people that started, they were like jumping up to the front of the queue with the people that have been doing it for years in a short matter of time, practice wise. It's kind of like that idea of once somebody runs a mile in 4 minutes, lots of people can do it, but before that, it was impossible. So I look at things in terms of the human, human neural pathways that we might carve out in the practicing of certain skills that really those neural pathways, if other people have been doing that thing, then that neural pathway is more like for you, like a perforated piece of paper. So instead of having to try to find where the line is, there's already a perforation there. So you're just like, okay, this is going really easily up until the point where you get to the cutting edge of whatever that experience is. So like everyone that is a reality designer or doing like the type of research that I'm interested in or what have you, even if we're not in direct communication with each other, we're all chipping away at the same wall in the neural pathway of the collective consciousness in that particular reality tunnel or skilled perforation of the big piece of paper, right? So in that sense, a lot of people were able to, like during cooties, to just jump right ahead to the right to the wall that the rest of us were at. You know what I mean? Instead of, well, I shouldn't say they don't instantly teleport there, but for us, like we've been chipping away at that wall to make some progress over years, whereas all the progress we've made, the new people get to just walk through that or jog through that leisurely without a wall there. But then they catch up to where the wall's at, and we're all chipping at the wall together. That's how I see the collective consciousness. That's, that all makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's like a path in a computer, you know? You gotta scan around, "Where's my file? Where did I save that video?" And you check every folder, and once you got it, you can just copy the link, be like, "Oh, all my files are saved in desktop slash doot 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 doot." And there's the absolute path of where it is, and we're all chipping away and creating those mind lines. That's what these things are gonna be called in the 3D spaces, they're gonna be mind lines. Things which you can travel to get to the end point of where it exists.
Cool. Especially excited about the potential of building a interactive biofield anatomy teaching tool. That could be so awesome. That doesn't exist in the world yet,
Yeah.
like be such a helpful way for people to get it. I'd really love that. So let's definitely talk about it.